Joining me now is Alexander Scanlon. He is the founder, CEO, and managing director at Barton Gold. Great, as always, to see you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So in 23, the goal was to do about 20,000 meters of drilling. We're getting towards the end of the year. We'll get an update there. So you've got the two main projects, Tonila, Tarula, and we'll start with Tonila and the 223 deposit. You've done some extension drilling that's completed. What did you do and what are you expecting from the results?
So that is an asset that we grew in April of this year. So we grew that by about 190,000 ounces in April. And I think the important thing there was, the scale of growth was nice. That took it to 1.15 million ounce deposit, which is a nice kind of magic number in many respects. But importantly, the efficiency of the growth was really important. So we grew those ounces for about $12 Australian per ounce on an all-in basis. So drilling an assay and all the technical work. So we have followed that up now with additional drilling to further extend that deposit, but then also to test some of the surrounding gold zones. We have 3 new gold zones that we've confirmed over the past 2 years. So we are going to look to further grow that deposit. As you mentioned, we accelerated the drilling on the extensions of 223. That material or those assays have already moved over into a work stream to start doing a resource upgrade, with the idea that we will have an update of that 223 deposit in December. And then all of the drilling and assays for the surrounding gold zones will follow behind that, with the idea that we might follow up with a second resources update as early as March and see if we can't actually create a whole new deposit, a whole new base of JORC resources there.
Interesting. Then you've also said that you're hoping that Area 51, which is 5 kilometers away from Tonila, could be a mini-me of 223, and I love that metaphor. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so Area 51 is interesting because the 223 deposit is on the western margin of a shear zone, and Area 51 is just 5 kilometers along from the center of that 223 deposit. And the 223 deposit is this very long, sort of broad, continuous body of mineralization with a higher grade core. And Area 51 looks like it's exhibiting some of those same behaviors. So broad, disseminated style of mineralization with the potential for there to essentially be a higher grade core. And what we were looking at in the drilling that we announced before was something that was a 40 or 50 gram meter core. So it's not to say it's not 50 meters at 10 grams per ton, but it's bulk mineable mineralization. That's what we're really after with Tonila. And that's exactly what we're looking to replicate there along strike of the 223 and potentially test further down the shear zone as well.
Something else you're doing, Alex, is drilling at the Perseverance West zone at Tarula. This is the formerly producing mine, and you're looking for a shallow, high-grade, open pitable deposits, correct?
Correct, yeah. So in the open pit itself, it's quite shallow. So we have drilled extensions of the pit and identified a new sort of high-grade gold zone there. We're also going to do some more drilling just in the pit floor, because the historical owners essentially thought of this sort of like a soup bowl, and then they knew there was soup in the soup bowl, and they ate that soup, but they didn't drill through the bottom of the soup bowl, so to speak. So what we're looking at is potential easily accessible extensions just of that pit floor. And then the bigger picture is looking at what created that high-grade pit, because that pit was producing 3 to 4 gram per ton mineralization to our mill. So very attractive open pitable mineralization. So the bigger picture is actually that we have identified a series of structures across about a 10 to 12 kilometer long zone that look like essentially analogous repeats of the structure that created that pit. So we've been also doing seismic work, and early 2024, we're also going to come back around and drill test some of our favorite targets from that. The idea being to keep building that large scale 150,000 ounce supporting platform that we see building in Tonila, and accelerate some of the shallower, higher grade stuff at Tarula, because that becomes both blending feed for that big bulk operation at Tonila, but it also becomes stage 1 opportunity or stage 1 mining opportunity for us to then use our mill and bring forward mining several years and then self-fund the whole thing.
And speaking of mill and a mill cleanup, you've talked before about selling gold from the mill cleanup. You've done it twice. You're planning a third and final sale. So what is that going to look like? When will it be? And also, the second part of that would be that remind us about the unique sort of value proposition that adds to shareholders, because you do have this revenue coming in.
Yeah, well, I think there's probably two sides to the value proposition. One is we've got a mill, and this is actually a mill that can be used. You know, there are a lot of old mills out there, but they've been sitting still for 25 years, and they are, broadly speaking, scrap metal, you know, standing that actually comes with a cost. We were actually looking at how we might be able to optimize and do a basic workover of the gravity circuit of our mill, because we think there might be a way to sort of increase recoveries of some of this high-grade material. As we were taking off some of the equipment, we realized between the cyclones and the gravity circuit all the way down to the gold room, there was about, there was north of 10 wet tons of material there. And from that, we've processed about 11 tons of high-grade concentrate. So 11 dry tons at about 30,900 gram per ton. So about 1,400 ounces of gold. So we will look to sell that. We're just doing some final assaying on it to make sure we have a really consistent grade profile on what we're selling. We will look to sell that in the coming, few months, and that's in Australian dollar terms about $4 million worth of contained gold, and we'll look to repeat that as well. So there are other parts of the mill that we may look to clean out that may yield some more gold, but the value proposition there for shareholders is simply, look, we are doing work that we would do anyway on the path to a regular operation. We are essentially getting paid back 10 to 1 to do this work. So it allows us to generate capital. I think we're on the path to generating about $10 million in non-dilutive additional cash. And that's money we don't have to raise in the market, which is obviously very important in a market where you've had a protracted sort of downslope in pricing. So today, the shareholders that we had at an IPO 2.5 years ago still own about 95% of our business, which is a considerably greater outcome than most sort of junior explorer developers.
Right. And lastly, Alex, you're trading on the OTC in the States. So tie that in terms of investor awareness in a bigger market, basically, for the company and for the shares, along with, the 45-second pitch that you give all the time. Here's what we're all about.
Yeah, look, I mean, for us, we IPO'd into the COVID bubble in Australia, so we couldn't really get out and engage with people. But once we started doing that at the end of, middle to end of 2022, when our restrictions were opened, we had a lot of interest in what we were doing in terms of, I think, just general value proposition. For everything we've just discussed, the mill and 1.3 million ounces and all this growth and performance, we're a $45 million Australian stock, or about 30 million US market cap, and then knock off our gold and gold and cash, and we're in the low 20s. So we think it's a deep value proposition. We had that sort of reinforced in conversation, and we had a number of investors in the US in particular, and Canada as well to a lesser extent, who said, look, we like the story, but our broker doesn't offer ASX securities, or it's too hard to invest overseas. So will you guys open a US listing? I know I can't buy the ASX. I know I can buy an OTC QB security. So we've opened up an OTC QB listing. And we've also secured a registration with the Depository Trust Company, which allows for real-time trading and settlement of the securities, which means your more conventional full-service brokers can also custody those shares and trade them for you.
Perfect. Yep. Great stuff. All right, lots of news coming, sounds like it, and always good to get an update. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Alex Scanlon, he is with Barton Gold, CEO, founder, and managing director.